welcome back. It's 2023 for a pair of dinks, and I guess everyone else. Okay, but this is our first Just Us episode of 2023, because hopefully y'all heard our last episode.
Yeah, and we hope you enjoyed the company of our friend Rodrigo as much as we do, and we look forward to having him back after he has completed his epic race.
Yeah, that's coming up really soon.
Yeah.
Like a month away?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, the 11th.
Yeah, it was early February. Yeah. All right. Good luck, Rodrigo. We're rooting for you. We know you'll do great.
Yeah, and this year, we kind of thought we would share just a bit more about the pair of dinks, Chantel and Jake.
Yeah, who were we before we became a pair of dinks?
Yeah, so it's going to get real personal. And, but I'll just say this was something that I didn't really want to talk about before, just because, you know, it is very personal, and I've always been kind of a quiet person. But I'm ready, and I'm excited to share our story of how we met.
Yeah.
And how we got here.
Me too. I think I went so against the what would I call it? Like just sort of the social stream and the social pressure that I think a lot of young people feel. And you know, similar to you, I've never shared a lot about my personal life experience, very publicly at least. Mm-hmm. Like if I meet you one-on-one, I'm happy to just be an open book, but I'm never someone who's like put it out there like this in a recorded format or where anyone who I don't know can listen to. But I think that's starting to change as the more I've shared my personal life experiences. I've had really great reactions from people, and they appreciate the level of, I guess, thought and detail and intention and vulnerability that I provide. And so going forward, I think that's something I want to put out in the world more, is just sharing my experiences, my deep reflections, reactions on them, and in the hopes that someone else will learn something. Because I think right now I look out and I see a world where so many people struggle with interpersonal communication and relationships on many levels, whether they're romantic partnerships, friendships, family, like business. Mm-hmm. I think people are really struggling to communicate and to share things that they feel deeply. So that's a hope with this podcast, is that by sharing our stories and our deep personal fears, hopes, dreams, nightmares, comedic moments, all of it. We just want to encourage that in the world.
Yeah, actually, there's something that I came across here on somebody's Instagram this morning. It said, people don't like assertiveness because if you're clear with them, then that means they have to be clear and direct with themselves. And too many people are in a constant state of self-avoidance, so passivity is more comfortable. And maybe that's not exactly what we're talking about here, but it kind of lands on the same point of we're all just sort of avoiding ourselves and how we actually feel, and that kind of plays on to how my life was before you too. So, and I think that people actually really do react very well when we are just completely honest, because they are also struggling with maybe the same thing, maybe something different that they can learn from my story, your story, our story, and roll with it. And I think that we just all have to be more honest and more open, and communication doesn't just work in a relationship. It works with everybody, at any time. I know we are so worried about offending other people, but honestly, I think we're offending ourselves by not being honest.
No.
And in turn, we're not helping that person at all.
Totally. Yeah, because we're withholding a truth. We're essentially lying to them so that we don't create a negative emotional interaction or experience.
And for my personal experience, when I have been defensive from something somebody said, it's because I know that they're right, and that's that really is how it is for most people. So, anyways.
Yeah, well, I was going to jump on when you first started talking about this. It immediately made me think of this idea that I have been just not wrestling with, but working on integrating into my persona and my being is that, when somebody critiques me or I experience a negative interaction with somebody where they behaved in a way that makes me feel bad or like, ooh, I don't like that about you. You're a blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. I realize that it's because I recognize I do that in my life in some way, and I really dislike that about myself.
Yeah.
And so what I've tried to do is when I feel that, sometimes it comes out to that person. I try not to express it, but sometimes it does inevitably. And, you have to deal with that and just be honest about it.
Yeah.
But that honesty comes from that introspection of saying, why was I so aggressive towards you about the way you behaved? Oh, because in myself, I see that I do this thing, and I don't like that because now I see how it makes somebody else feel because I've felt that.
And we can't control how other people feel, but we can control ourselves or understand ourselves. We can be better ourselves. So that quick reaction to react badly or aggressively or passively is just because we have to work on something within ourselves.
And we have to accept that that's how we made somebody feel. And I've always found that asking someone questions is usually the better way out of it. And sometimes you just have to wait till they cool down so that you can have that discussion and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I meant what I said in this fashion, and I would like to hear why you took it that way. And not as a way to now argue with you about it and try to tell you why you should take my words differently, but so I can understand what I said and how it can be taken in a different way than what I thought it to mean.
Yeah. Well, and in turn, if you're the one that's hurt too, you can, tell the other person how you're feeling as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's a great exercise too, and not bringing your anger reaction to it, right?
Yeah.
By saying, ooh, that person made me really angry, but I'm not going to act out in anger. I'm going to now calmly tell them why I didn't like what they said or why it makes me feel unappreciated or...
Can we pause for a second?
Or just devalued as a person. Because we can unintentionally do that because we don't know people's history. We don't know what they've experienced and
what they're suffering through right now.
Yeah, exactly. We all have a different dialogue going on in our minds, and when you just get thrown something into there, it has a totally different meaning because it has a completely different context in my mind based off whatever my internal dialogue or emotional state is at that moment.
Yeah. So. But that's not what we're actually talking about today. Today we're talking about how the pair of dinks met.
Yeah. Well, that ties into it.
Yeah, it does. So, how do you want to start this? Do we want to just start? Okay, we met. Maybe I'll just explain how we met at first, and then we talk a little bit about our backgrounds at that time.
Yeah, let's talk about where we met, and then our individual backgrounds before that moment,
and how it brought us
and then
together.
we can jump into how we progressed. Like once we met and knew and figured out that we wanted to start dating and look into a relationship together and explore that, and then and then get us to know,
because it's very intricate. It's
That's such a good word.
Fast and furious. But
it's also it was very intricate.
It's also very simple and beautiful. So, okay. So on the internets, there is a website that connects creative people. So whether you're like a model, a photographer, an artist, makeup artist, whatever. And it's just a way where you can connect with local people in your area to
work together.
Yeah, work together. And so I had been doing some hobby modeling for a while. I'd worked with the same people for a while, and I was just looking for someone new to work with. Although I was very lazy, I didn't want to go too far because I was living in Maple Ridge, and most people are in Vancouver, and there was just no way I was always going to go head out to Vancouver. Blah.
And for those who don't know, like Maple Ridge to Vancouver is 45 minutes without traffic, maybe 2 hours if you're in traffic or more. So it's a bit of a haul.
Yeah. And when you're not getting paid, it's just sometimes not worth it.
Yeah, well, especially at the cost of gas and car maintenance. Yeah. Not always worth it for free gigs.
I was searching, in that filter search area, and I put anybody that was really close, and I came across Jake's portfolio, and the first thing that caught my eye was his picture was actually him, because most of the time the pictures or the avatars on people's profiles
photographers specifically.
Yeah, photographers are of their models or the work that they've done. So I was like, oh, is this actually him? And I went to the page, and because I already really loved your style. You were more professional.
There's a lot of amateurs on the site.
Yeah, than what I have seen. And, I just didn't want to work with anybody. I wanted to work with somebody that had some skill and some talent, and so
you were looking for a new look too.
Yeah,
like visual aesthetic. I mean, like on the technical side.
Because oftentimes I end up like editing my own photos from other people, which I've always really appreciated. But I wanted to take that away. I wanted someone else to do all the work. I just wanted to be there.
Again, kind of lazy.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, so when I got to his page, I went through his portfolio first. Really loved your photos. I loved the people in your photos. You had some really fun vintage looking photos with some models that were really fun and hilarious, and I loved that because it wasn't too serious, and you didn't have a bunch of just straight up naked women that's also all over that site. And I'm like, you actually have some talent here. Like, I like it. But and then I read your profile as well, and I can't remember exactly what it said, but I remember it saying something about
getting
unstuck. You were talking about getting unstuck, and I felt like I was stuck as well in my sort of work. And so I sent you a little comment. I said something about, I guess we could always bring that up, but I sent you something. So I think this was March 21st, 2021. I know it was around that time. And I sent you a comment, said, hey, I really like your work. If you ever want to, it would be a pleasure to work with you if you ever want to get unstuck or something. I thought it was very clever. And
you did use my words back at me.
Yeah. I was also, again, after just briefly kind of looking through your stuff and looking back at your photo, I was already just kind of smitten. I was just like, this guy is very interesting. Like, I'm already very interested. There was something about you, there was nothing glamorous or anything about your picture, the picture of you. But I couldn't help but just feel like I needed to know you. And I was freaking out because I never really reach out to anybody. But I sent that comment, and I'm like, okay, let's just see what happens. If nothing happens, it's all good. Like, whatever. But you were the only person I reached out to that day. And then 2 hours later, there was a message from Jake in my inbox. And I was like, oh, no, I can't answer it. I can't be that one. Oh, my gosh. He just sent me a message already. I can't reply. I have to wait a whole day. I can't be that person. So that was that was the first initial interaction. Was I reached out to you on a website, and you reached back.
Mm-hmm. Responded.
Yeah. Same thing. You responded when I finally went and opened up that message, because I didn't want to open it up and read it because it says, it tells the person that it's been read. I was playing all sorts of funny fucking games with myself.
You're hilarious.
It was funny. Yeah. Just like the cat over there. So I waited till the next day to open it up, look at it, and you responded very well. You reacted very well. And, you never know how somebody's going to respond or if they'll respond. And I was just like, oh, thank God it worked out. And then we started talking professionally about what we might want to create
Yeah.
with photography and modeling. And I always make it a point to meet a photographer, whether in person at a someplace full of people, or
Safe public space.
yeah, or at least have well, even when doing like actually doing the shoot, it's usually in a public place as well. Or my home I usually have like a friend with me or something if I'm getting to know the photographer at first. But I suggested we have a Zoom chat just so we can talk content and get to know each other a little bit and see if we would be a good fit and if we're both trustworthy. And so we scheduled a meeting like 3 days after.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I would say too is, I mean, first, that's just good practice for anyone out there listening and in a creative space where you have to collaborate with other people. Don't just jump straight into project without meeting somebody and getting to know them, whether that's in person or online, because that's also been a huge part of my practice as a photographer. If I'm working with somebody new, a model or collaborator of any kind, because I think the rapport is a very important part of the process as well. And like, because you're going to have to spend a bunch of time around this person. You're going to maybe enter into some little conflicting arguments where you might disagree on a direction or a look or a something, and you're going to have to navigate that together. So it's good to know, can I navigate arguments or disagreements with this person? Not arguments, I'll say just disagreements. It's too heavy. But, can we have fun here? Can we bounce the ball back and forth? And also, does this person respect my time and the effort that I'm going to put into this? I think so often I had reached out to some models or people who wanted to work with me, and I feel like I'm just getting blown off. They're like on the phone, walking to something. They sound super busy, like all these other things are more important. And so I go, okay, we're not doing this then. Like, you clearly don't respect what I'm doing, the time I'm going to put into this. You don't want to explore anything new either. Like, I'm not a cookie cutter photographer. I'm not interested in just repeating the same things over and over. And so many people look at my work or just the work of photographers and think, oh, they just do the same thing. Like, nope, not at all. Maybe it looks kind of the same, but the process is always different. And that's what I enjoy about it, though. But that's what I enjoy about it. I enjoy that sort of long, drawn out, let's get to know each other, do this. Like, I'm not into the, hey, show up, snap me 10 photos and give it to me by 3 p.m. I'm like, fuck off. Go find someone else.
Yeah.
Not into that. So,
well, and
I appreciate it. Like, that immediately off the bat, though, I really appreciated that, because to me, it told me that you respected your own time process. Also, you were, being safe with yourself. Which just told me you're not a very reckless person. Like, we're not. So much of that just lined up on a professional level to begin with. And then, when I looked at your portfolio, I saw this incredibly dynamic range, like, of just look and expression. And I could tell you were somebody who was more interested in something that's beyond the physical image. Like, there's something that you're exploring in what you're doing. There's ways that you're pushing yourself, even the range of your looks, right? And that, like, I remember first off, you had some on there with your shaved head, and I was like, oh my God, like, she doesn't care. Like, she will go and do the thing, like, whatever it is. Like, if it's shave your head because I want to, for whatever reason, I'm like, but you'll do it. And so many people, as we've said over the years, are completely afraid of,
my hair
I think,
is never
extreme
the
physical
same.
change, like
Yes.
the change of their look.
It's just so
they don't
silly.
like it, whether it's aging or cutting your hair or, wearing a different color or something. Like, so many people are so fucking afraid of a little bit of change in their appearance. And I think seeing that in you just told me immediately, okay, she's really up for, like, anything that we want to do. But she's also smart about it, right? Because you weren't rushing in and you're like, yeah, let's go do this wild idea. And like, we've never met and I don't know who you are. You're like, no. Like, I like to do some wild shit, but like, who the fuck are you as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I have to say, like, I was just, I don't know. I was having heart palpitations. I don't know. I immediately liked you. Immediately. I couldn't pretend. I mean, I did pretend. I was very professional. We were very professional. But I wanted to get to know you as well as a person. But I also that's just me. I just like to get to know people I want to know if we can be honest with each other and like, yeah, like you said, build that rapport, and then because that's how you create the best
It's
moments.
like at a minimum for creative relationships, I think you have to form a good friendship.
Yeah.
Like to have some of your best work, or to really be able to put yourself out there in the company of somebody else or collaborating with them. You have to have at least a solid friendship as a foundation to really be able to do, I think, anything very interesting creatively.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we had our Zoom meeting. We were actually on there for like an hour or so until we had to just say bye-bye because we were just talking forever and ever and ever, and we could have talked forever more. But we created
we've pretty
a
much
plan.
been talking ever since.
We basically, yes, we have been together every day since around then. But anyways, okay. So we had our Zoom meeting, we made a plan, and then we had another Zoom meeting. But the second Zoom meeting a few days later even was just we were just kind of bored and I think a little bit lonely. I was at home drinking wine, stoned on the couch, watching TV or something, and I don't know what you were doing.
I was probably home alone too, but
Yeah, and
I don't remember what I was doing.
We were just.
It was still kind of a weird COVID-y time as well, so there wasn't really things to do or things open. I don't think I was working at that moment. Or I might have been. I'd have been doing part-time. But I remember I wasn't working that week.
You were doing your props at the time.
Yeah, a little bit. But
yeah,
that was always
not a lot.
intermittent. It was like a few days a week here and there.
Yeah.
Some weeks not at all.
Yeah, so we were just, bored, and we were still messaging on that site, and I think it was that. Oh no, we were emailing by this time because we were emailing plans and outfits and course of action and all this stuff. And
yeah. Well, and I would say, I forgot that, because I also saw that somewhere in there, I saw that you did your own photography.
Oh yeah.
And I was interested in being photographed as well.
Yeah.
So I remember we added that layer to it, where it's like, well, I'd be interested to have you shoot me, because I felt really comfortable with you. And you had extreme talent in modeling. Like, I felt like we were at a similar talent space in a way, where it's like, wow, we both have really incredible talent that could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars and lots of professional accolade, but we're just sort of at home hobbying and semi-proing.
Yeah, and I don't think I had really photographed any men at that point yet either. So that was something I was interested in trying. So I was really excited about that too. You were just excited.
And I thought it would help me grow as a photographer by spending some time on the other side of the camera to get a better feel for
sure.
What is it like to be photographed? Because, I think that makes some of the best photographers as well, is when you understand what that feeling is like.
Yeah, so we were emailing, and then we were like, oh, what are you doing? Want to just chat? We can talk more about whatever. And then we just had another Zoom, and this time we just talked about all sorts of things. Like, you told me about your family. You went a little bit more in depth about your cancer experience. I don't remember everything because I was obviously drinking, but I was just, it was much more personal. And I was just I was just like blown away. You really you still fascinate me, but you fascinated me. I just wanted to know more. And then after that is when we exchanged phone numbers to text and chat more.
And then we were starting to share music.
Yeah.
I remember that a lot over phone. I was like, hey, here's this song I really like. Here's this song I really like. And I think it was at that point I started to get like, I would say from the beginning, I had this weird sort of underlying feeling of, I think she really wants to get to know me. And I was having a hard time discerning, is that a friendship level or something more? And like, I had a really heightened sense to that, where I was really sensitive to that kind of behavior, which we can get into as we talk about our years before meeting. But I remember at this point in my life, especially after that cancer experience, I was feeling like I need to do so many things differently. And usually that would freak me out, and I would just sort of shut down the whole interaction, right? Because I'd be like, I don't know, I'm feeling like this person wants to get to know me personally. I just want this to be professional. Nope, sounds complicated. I'm out. Like, I would just find a reason to, exit conversation and not do anything together. But I remember wanting to push more into my photography work and knowing I want to photograph people. And I felt, okay, what's the harm? Like, don't let your mind run away from you. Just, this person's interesting. They're showing an interest in you. You know, if it starts to get to an uncomfortable place, then you can address that. But it's not. And you're enjoying this time. And there's nothing, like, it's a professional friendship, you know, or like professional relationship turning into a friendship.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. Keep going. And so, but I did always have this like bit of a, I don't know what I would call it. It's like sort of like the hair on the back of my neck standing up, just sort of being on alert
Intuition.
for like, okay, this might start to get weird. Watch out for a flag or something.
Well, I'll just I'll throw this in here now. I was engaged at the time, and I was very clear about that. I never hid that. I made that obvious. And so all of our interactions, whether even though we were getting to know each other more personally, it was still very professional. There was no outright flirting or anything. It was all just curiosity and I always say professional, sorry. But I needed to make that very clear because, of course, I didn't start this conversation with you because I was looking for somebody new. I started it because I was looking for a photographer to collaborate with. But I couldn't help that with you. I just had this gut feeling, this intuition that regardless of anything that ever happened, I needed to know you. I just needed to know you as a person. Mm-hmm. That we would become good friends. And so that's how I rolled with it. But I couldn't help still just be fascinated and really want to just understand who you were. But I was engaged at the time, and I was obvious about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so before we shot, though, I remember there was a day, it was a weekend day, a Saturday or a Sunday, and we had been talking a lot back and forth about ideas and what we were going to do on the shoot. And I did a lot of, or I think during my chemo and cancer experience, I did a lot of walking on trails and public parks and stuff. And one of my favorites was Derby Reach along the river between Langley and Maple Ridge. And I remember I was going for a walk and I thought, like, we hadn't met in person at that time, but we felt very comfortable. We had like the start of a really good friendship going on along with our professional relationship. And I thought, let's just see if she's free and wants to just join me, and we'll just walk along there and we can talk about these ideas and I don't know, just kill time. Cause I got that same sense from you that you were also very alone. Cause I was, especially at that point, my parents had been gone, because I was after my treatment. So my parents had left. A lot of my, you know, the friends that I had worked in film, and they were back on set working and doing other things, and things were still closed from COVID. So I thought, I'd enjoy some company and good conversation. And we always had good conversation. So I invited you out for a walk.
Yeah.
And you like quickly accepted, which kind of surprised me, but also really excited
me. It was
me.
a plan. You weren't already out walking. We did plan it.
Yeah, but it was like the night before or something. I remember it was a little last minute, but it wasn't like, hey, meet me in 10 minutes. But
yeah,
I remember just sort of being like, hey, you want to go for a walk tomorrow or later today or something like that.
Yeah, and I believe it was a Sunday at like fucking 9 a.m. or something retarded.
I get up early. I'm an early riser.
What? And honestly, and you were even saying you were going to be a little bit late, but then you were there before me. But as soon as we got there, I was, you know, when I'm anxious or shy or whatever, I kind of shut down just a little bit because I don't know, or I skip over my words. I hesitate. I don't know how to act. And so I was really worried that was going to happen, and I was going to just like look like a fool, and I didn't want that. But
you didn't.
Yeah, I know, because as soon as we got there, like we had a hug and we just started chatting, and then we ended up walking for 4 hours.
Yeah, we walked all the way into Fort Langley, and then I ate a burrito in front of you, which I still just...
I wasn't
It still
hungry
makes me
because I
laugh.
literally had just eaten, but he was all worried about eating. You know what? I remember going through that in high school, like when you're dating somebody and you don't want to eat in front of them, you don't want to go to the bathroom. Like, it's the most retarded thing ever. And
I feel weird with anybody. If I'm eating, like if I'm just sitting there eating and you're not, I feel weird. It feels like I don't know. It feels like somehow I am hogging all of the
I just wasn't hungry.
like food or whatever, or like I'm being rude and not, I don't know. Something about it just feels funny to me. I got over it. I ate that whole burrito.
Yeah. Yeah, but we got to know each other even more, you know, like I laugh because I'm not much of a conversationalist and we couldn't shut the fuck up. But I remember telling you, you know, I felt like I felt like I already knew you. Like you didn't come out of nowhere. You've been there forever. And so it was so easy. And we talked about all sorts of things. And I had my engagement ring on.
Yeah, I remember that disappointed me a lot.
Well, like I said, I wasn't hiding anything. I wasn't.
Because I remember, I think like a few hours into our walk, I had this just urge to like want to grab your hand and just hold hands as we walk. But I was like, you can't. Like, I see the ring. And like knowing everything up here, like, I guess that we're wanting to work together. This is a friendship. Like, don't make it weird. You know, I was telling myself, I'm like, no, don't make this weird. Like, just, this is what it is. Like, you know, I think I was finally at a point in my life too where I was opening up to the idea of wanting to have some kind of a romantic relationship in my life. Mm-hmm. I remember at that point, I didn't feel like that was the time to like start that, but I was opening up to that idea. So it was also kind of weird for me for the first time in my life having that urge to be like, I really like this person. Wouldn't it be great if we were just walking along holding hands together? Like, that would feel so awesome.
Aw.
And but feeling really disappointed, like I can't.
Yeah, and you never ever made anything weird either. I never got the impression that you were even really interested in anything like that. If anything, I was battling with my own feelings, which we'll get into more later. I'll be more honest about all that later, but we're just talking about us and everything. So I was feeling funny. But anyway, so after that, I think it was like a week later, we finally had our photo shoot.
Mm-hmm. And that was a blasty blast.
And that was like an 8-9 hour day of just, and I've had long photo shoots with people like 4 or 5 hours, but holy fuck, 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It just, we were having so much fun. It just never, we didn't want it to end. And we were getting such good results, like between the photos I took of you as well. I was so happy you let me use your camera. You even finally taught me how to use a camera properly.
Yeah, well, that was something you had mentioned in our conversations. You were like, I want to get a little better with the camera. I'm like, yeah,
because
I'll show you.
I struggled
No problem.
to know the actual functions of the camera. I would just kind of like point and shoot and hope that I could figure it out after that.
Yeah, it's harder than it looks too. People always think it's so easy, but then you put a camera in their hands and like, well, why doesn't it look good? I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You got to practice and figure all these other things out.
I was so thrilled with the results of the photos I took of you. They're still like some of my fucking favorite. I think they're still some of the best photos I've ever taken.
I love them too. I love the way that you photograph me.
Yeah, it was funny because you were
I don't have a lot of good photos of myself.
Tight at first. You were just, I guess you've never been, well, like you said, you haven't had the camera focused on you before and you didn't know how to really relax. But I think you had mentioned that I kind of helped you by being the model first and kind of just, I'm just silly. I move around a lot because one thing I learned was that the more that you move, the better, the more options the photographer has. Mm-hmm. Like, don't just sit in one spot the whole fucking time. When you hear the click, make an adjustment. So I was just goofing around, having a good time. At that point, you know, like we had already been hours and hours. So hours and 2 outfits later.
Yeah. Well, and we were at a park and there were so many different looks and feels to the park. Mm-hmm. Between the trees, the landscapes, the what was the little houses that were sprinkled around. I'm forgetting the name of the park right now too. Redwood. Yeah.
In Surrey.
And there's a whole section of it that has a bunch of little bird houses and
they're fairy houses, but
right.
we didn't actually find the fairy houses.
Yep, we did.
We didn't photograph in there.
No, but we found them. But I just mean, like, there were so many different looks because that forest had kind of like this enchanted forest
and there
feel
was
in terms
like
of the
cabin.
Yep. And there was a cabin house that they had built, and then just a bunch of wide open spaces that we turned into, like, with tall grass that we turned into fun little things. So, like, we were just kind of going around to all these different sections of the park, and just ideas were coming.
And
like,
the
we just
light
kept finding
was
the light that day was amazing. Winter light in Canada is really incredible. I'm not going to lie. There's something about the angle of the earth and the sun that just creates some of the most beautiful light that you can get on clear days.
Yeah. So this is like April 11th. I'm pretty sure it was around April 11th is when we were, when this was happening.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I always say my memory is really bad, but when it came to Jake, like I hung on to a lot of information. So I was always so proud of myself for remembering this timeline.
Yeah. And then I remember too, I'd packed up a bit of a lunch as well.
Oh
I thought it might
so
go a
cute.
bit long. And well, I come from the filmmaking I come from, there was always snacks and lunches and like so much goddamn food around all the time. And so I was always just used to that. But also I think I recognized that, once I got used to that, I could go a long time without it. And I realized how awesome it is that, oh my gosh, I could quickly just work for 5-6 hours and not have any food. And suddenly you're, brain dead and falling apart. I'm like, oh, it's important if something goes for a long time to have some kind of food and drink on hand so that we can at least stop, relax, keep our energy good. Because if we want to keep going, we'll need that.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want the shoot to end if we were having a good time.
Yeah,
so that's always been
awesome.
a practice of mine with, well, especially when I know it could be a longer shoot. I'm like, plan for meals, plan for food, plan for breaks, because we want to keep the creative train going.
Yeah, that was really nice. I appreciated that because I hadn't experienced that either yet with anybody, because I don't think anybody ever really thinks about that.
No, and they're cheap.
Yeah.
I think that's most of it. They're cheap. Or they have too many things in a day. Like, I like to clear the day. I'm like, if I'm going to be creative and we're going to do something, then like that's my day. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't try to do a lot of other things.
Yeah.
No.
So do you have anything more to say about that day?
No, I do remember that softening up. Like, I remember feeling very rigid and awkward. Because like you said, I'd maybe been in front of cameras before, and I'd done some like background scenes in the indie films I had been on, because sometimes they need a random extra police officer in the background, and so they're like, hey, props guy, just put on your outfit and go in there. But like but all that to say, I'd always sort of been something else. It wasn't just me being me or exploring anything, or it was just like school portraits or something that's very posed, and not like, hey, you can do anything you want. Or like, I'm like, it was such a foreign, weird idea. But I remember you made it really fun and just a natural environment where I felt like I could start to let my guard down, just be myself. And even if we got weird, goofy photos, like, I think I'll say you set the tone perfectly, because the first shot we did, you climbed up into the tree. And then I remember you were jumping out of it, and you kind of had a goofy fall jump out of the tree.
I landed and then tumbled. Like, I literally landed on my feet and then did a somersault. The momentum was going, continued.
But I remember it was just kind of goofy and awkward, and I was like,
you were
oh my
so
gosh, are
worried.
You okay? Like, well, I couldn't tell. From the angle I was looking, I was like, did you roll out of that, or did you fall and hurt something here? And, very quickly you were laughing. And I was like, okay, she's fine. But that, I think, helped set the tone for the day, where I was like, okay, I can fall out of a tree on my ass, and we'll just laugh and be okay. Yeah,
it was nice that I felt very comfortable. Yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah,
awesome.
But
sorry, cat crawling over the keyboard.
Yeah, she's okay. All right, it's good. She didn't hit anything.
I should also say, like we had been talking a lot in that short amount of time, like those couple of weeks. Email, text, sharing music. You shared a bunch of your writings. You shared your Google photos with me. I was
Google
such,
Photos is like my personal photo
yeah, I
albums.
was such a creep though. Like, I got to know Jake when Jake didn't know I was getting to know him. I got a little obsessed, and I won't lie about that. I got a little obsessed, and not in a weird way. I was just so fascinated. You're a musician. You write. And everything you did, you had so much passion. And you know what? I remember watching some of your videos, like you playing guitar, and it was just you. And I just remember seeing so much joy and fun, like you were just enjoying yourself with yourself, and it made me jealous because I had gone so many years, I didn't know who I was anymore, and I spent so many years just drowning in loneliness and didn't know who I was, couldn't find joy in anything. And watching you just be like, oh, this is, like I'm playing guitar. This is so much fun. And you're just doing it all by yourself. I was enamored by that. I loved watching it. It made me feel really good, and it made me want that.
This is a good segue into, I guess, talking about
Yeah.
our past leading up to that moment.
Yeah.
Because I remember, too, something that kind of, I don't know, I think tipped me off that you wanted to learn a lot more about me as a person was even as we sat there having that midday break, and you started asking about my relationship history. And you were like, I remember talking so much about my work and how many hours that took. And then I also just loved to travel when I wasn't working. So I was never really around like home or Vancouver. Like, if I wasn't working, I wasn't in Vancouver. I was trying to get somewhere else or go do a project in the States or whatever. Like, I was doing.
Yeah.
And I remember, you were kind of like, well, how do you ever date or meet somebody?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't. And I don't.
Yeah. So let's talk about Jake before us. Jake, take it away.
Jake, take it away. So before us, I had spent, oh God, I think at that point it was probably about 10 years or close to 10 years as a single man living a bachelor life. And it was mostly by choice and design. So I guess it can really start back at high school. I won't make this super drawn out, but so in my last 2 years of high school, I was in a relationship with my high school girlfriend, and it was a great high school relationship.
High school sweeties.
Yeah, I think looking back now, I can see how we had very different, I guess, life goals and ambitions. That it's ultimately why we didn't stay together after high school. But throughout high school, we had such a great time together, and really got along as friends, as well as loving each other. Right, so. But that fell apart, and then I had dated this other girl for, maybe 6 months or something before I came up to Vancouver. It's after high school, I just went to community college. I forget how I had met this girl, but we started dating for a while. She had some issues going on in her life, specifically around drugs and alcohol and things. And I was kind of unaware of that. I was also, I think, beginning to have my own issues with alcohol. So that just kind of imploded in a terrible way. And right before I went up to Vancouver for my schooling. So when I got to Vancouver, I was like, you're just, no, you don't need a relationship. My whole thing was focus on your studies. Just don't worry about any of that.
You were proud of being a young single guy.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, because I'm putting this in my book that I'm writing, I had this idea from, was it Henry David Thoreau? He wrote this book called Walden, A Year in the Woods or something. I can't remember the subtitle, I'm sorry. But he basically left society to live out in this cabin in the woods by himself because he wanted to discover what was essential for life. And I've never read the book. That's literally all I know about it. But it kind of inspired me for the journey of my 20s, where I thought, just go live by yourself and see what you're capable of. What do you need? What are you capable of doing? And how can you just love yourself? I think looking back now, I see how much sort of self doubt I had. And I was also wanting desperately to run far the fuck away from where I had gone to high school and that whole community I was involved with. So I was really like, I just want to get far the fuck away, be on my own, and see if I can make a life happen. And that was really that guiding thing throughout my life. And then watching so many of my classmates like very quickly get pregnant out of relationships or jump into marriages and suddenly have a house and a kid and a 9 to 5 and a blah, blah, blah. And I remember feeling like there's so much out in the world to explore, and you've already like made that so much harder for yourself. Like, not that you can't go do that with a house and kids and all of that, but it's so much fucking harder versus when you're just you and your dumb 20-year-old self with, a job that pays you decently and you got some time off and you don't really have, many bills or responsibilities. You can go fuck off and do what you want, see the world, make all the mistakes you want to. Like, 'cause if I just go bankrupt and, fuck up whatever idea I'm going on. Okay. Like, I at least had parents who would say, you can come live in our basement rent free, to get yourself back on your feet. So I always had that bit of a safety net. Thankfully, I used it once, but, but was able to rebound pretty quickly. So anyhow, I had this really just avoidance of relationships. And then throw into that, I had someone really close to me get in a situation where they were accused of rape by a woman. And that really, I think, pushed me even farther away from like even casual dating.
Yeah. Because
I knew this person really well and I knew the situation and I was like, no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
Right? Like this girl, like, yeah, she had been on a break from a relationship with her boyfriend, which she was not upfront about in that situation. And then they were getting back together. And then it was one of those things like, oh, well, like, did you sleep with other people? I did. But like, it wasn't my fault. I was raped, like one of those kind of things. And while they were cleared of the charge, it still cost 10 grand and a bunch of public embarrassment, right? Because in the United States, if you're booked in by the sheriff, or at least in Whatcom County where I'm raised, if you're booked in by the sheriff, they print your name in the newspaper. So everyone can see that you were booked in for some kind of charge. And to me, it just felt like, sex is great, but no amount of sex is worth losing 10 grand and that amount of public shame and embarrassment, or even possibly stopping me from this freedom to go and explore the world and just be me and enjoy life. So I really had this very, very strong avoidance to relationships and romantic involvement with women. Not to mention the couple of times I did try dating, like, there's just the most dull and lifeless people I've ever met in my life. Like, no original thoughts, nothing, like, no personality, right? Like, what's your goals, ambitions, likes, passions, anything, And so I guess throughout my 20s, I took so much of that energy and I really learned how to spend time alone, to enjoy being with yourself, to find that beauty and joy of like just everyday life, because when you don't have another person there, when there's not chatter, when there's not blah, 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 like when the world is basically just sitting there and you're sitting in it, you'll either fall into major depression, which sometimes I did, but also that converse of it is you get to find all the joy and the beauty in those things. And by living by myself, most of the time, there was a period where I had a roommate for a little bit, but we were working in film, so we were both like never home. So it didn't really like, it wasn't much of a experience in the I guess traditional roommate sense, And yeah, I forget where I'm going with that. Oh, right. Just learning how to do things yourself, right? Like I remember one of the first nights living on my own in Vancouver, had like a bunch of dishes from dinner and stuff. And I remember looking at that feeling like, oh, I don't want to do that. But realizing there's fucking nobody else who's going to do it. So if I don't deal with these dishes, they're just going to sit there and get moldy and gross. And then I won't have things to eat off of. I won't have things to cook with. The apartment I had in Langley when we first met, that was the first time I ever had a dishwasher. So I was always doing dishes by hand. Like, so I don't know. It was really good in that sense. And then going around and traveling so much of the world on my own,
Yeah.
I think was also really great. And it started to boost a lot of that confidence. It started to open my eyes to different ways of doing things, different lifestyles, different career approaches. Yeah. And photographing it the whole time, writing about it. I did a lot of journaling. I will say that my high school girlfriend actually gave me my first journal.
That's cute.
Which is cool. And I filled that up within a couple of years and then, kept buying more journals and kept that practice going. So I think literally since getting out of high school, I've constantly been just exploring and reflecting on what I've seen and done and really just doing it all as myself in the world.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. So then that's what I guess turned me into the person that you saw. And then by the time I was meeting you, I think my cancer experience really awoken me to, I don't want to be alone in my life. I think, recognize there's a lot of value in sort of settling somewhere and having your adventures at a different pace, a slower pace, or bringing someone along with you, because there's, even still while you're out there having fun on these adventures, there's still long bouts of loneliness because you don't know anybody here. In some places I didn't even speak the language where I'm going. So it's not even easy to just strike up conversations with someone or get to make a friend because there's a whole language barrier. So, but yeah, it was a really valuable experience. And, yeah, I don't know. I was just working too much anyway. So you never had the time or the energy to devote into a relationship. And I knew when I wanted a relationship, I wanted to have that time to be able to spend time together. Like I didn't want a relationship on paper. Mm-hmm. I wanted it to be someone who, like, I wouldn't mind spending all day, every day with.
I remember you saying, well, like you had said, you hadn't really even met anybody. And I remember feeling very, very... Is it working? I remember feeling very special. That it was me that you wanted to be with. Because it was like, you've spent a whole decade, you've met all sorts of people, and it's me that you want to hang out with. I'm like, cool.
Yeah. Well, conversely, I had that same thing because I think also getting so used to being alone and so used to also like people wanting to get to know me because they find something interesting about me, or especially being an American in Canada, working in the Hollywood business. As soon as someone found out I was American, they would think I could get them into Hollywood easy. The Canadians or foreigners, right? People who weren't American citizens. And I'm like, so I always felt like there was ulterior motives to people wanting to get to know me. And for the first time feeling like, oh, like you want to get to know me. Like similar, like me? Like just, you don't care really, but like you love what I'm doing just from the fact that it brings me joy and makes me happy. But like you don't, like whatever it's labeled, you don't care about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not the title or the act. You're just like, wow. You're an interesting person, and that was fascinating to me.
Yeah, and you're really impressive. Also, because I've always felt,
shucks.
Well, really, like there's been nothing that I had seen or read that I didn't like, just naturally like. Like I wasn't trying to like you. I was really trying not to, but I couldn't help it. And so like it was easy. So is it my turn then?
Yeah. So let's talk about you and all
so
that led
I also
you to...
wanted to say another reason why I didn't want to really talk. I hadn't been ready to talk about this, was that I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I didn't want to be cruel to the people in my past because of just how it went for me. But okay. So, when I was 23, I got into a very serious relationship with somebody I'd been friends with since we were 14. And somebody I had always wanted to be with through my teens, but we lived in separate cities, like 4 hours away. And so, obviously, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't work out, blah, blah, blah. So, when I moved to Vancouver and I had the opportunity to date this person, I took it. But at the very beginning, I did not want to be in a relationship. I had just moved to Vancouver. I was 22. I wanted to date people. I wanted to sleep around. I wanted to see what was out there. I went to Vancouver to live that single life and experience things.
Which was I guess for those who don't know, a major change from where you grew up.
In the country, Yama, in a small town. So, yeah. But again, like I said, when the opportunity came up, because I had always wanted to be in that relationship when I was a teenager, when you're fucking crazy and your feelings are out of control.
Teenagers are crazy?
Yeah.
No way.
It blows my mind.
I was a very stable teenager.
So anyways, when I was asked, I took it. But I, from the very beginning, had some resentment towards him, towards our relationship, because I did something I didn't want to do. But I felt like if I didn't, I'd never have a chance. So, and on that note, I actually was living in this person's house. I was, his parents were very hospitable. They offered me a room to live in, and then we ended up just dating, and I moved downstairs and we lived in the basement suite together at 23. And then we were together for 8 years. I remember throughout that whole relationship, it was, besides a little bit some resentment at the beginning, like I still loved him very much. Like we had a whole friendship, a whole history before that. But also at the same time, like I was drinking a lot. My best friend had passed away the year before, and I was just not in a good space altogether. And throughout that relationship, like we grew up. I specifically said we grew up, not we grew up together, because we grew up and we grew very separate. He was in school, so I was working. No problem. We had a bunch of good years, but like halfway through our relationship, I tried to get out of it. There had been a couple times where I had tried to leave that relationship and yet stayed because I felt like I owed it to him. And then at one point I felt like I owed it to us. And I was being very, I was in denial about so much. And if I'm being honest now, I can say it was a safe place. It was stable. I had the fear of, starting over, and breaking his heart. Like, I did not want to do that. But I should have ended it a really long time ago when I originally felt. Because, if you've been in relationships, anybody out there, you break up once, you're going to fucking do it again. It kind of just happens. If your heart isn't 100% in it, then it's just not going to work out. Yes, passion comes and it goes, but that has nothing to do with how you, I'll just say this is really hard for me to actually talk about, because again, I still don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and not like I think anybody of them is actually listening, but
also, like we said, we can't control other people's reactions. Like, we can just feel what we feel and share that, and be understanding when someone tells us it hurt them.
Yeah. I think what I'm just worried about too is just this person did not understand what was going on. No matter how many times I had said how I felt, it still ended up being me blindsiding them, which I don't agree with, because I had vocalized, but he was so busy because he worked for a company where he did shift work. So he worked like 12-hour days, 12 days in a row. I barely saw this person. Like, I was alone a lot. I was doing things by myself all the time. Like, it felt like I was a roommate. Then I started to get upset because I was always doing something. I never wanted to be a housewife. I didn't want to be domesticated like that, and I was doing everything. But then I was saying, oh, well, he's bringing in the money, he's keeping us this house for us and whatnot by working, so it's the least I can do. But honestly, that's not a partnership.
Well, and it sounds too like it's not. Maybe it's a partnership for some people, but it's not the partnership you wanted.
Yeah.
It's not the dynamics that you wanted that would bring you to life.
Yeah. And, throughout those 8 years, I won't lie, like, there had been plenty of times where I looked at other people and I was attracted to other people. It was like, because again, I was alone all the time. I was yearning for attention, and no, I never did anything, but I certainly looked at people differently. And now that was just hard. I didn't like that, because I shouldn't be, if I'm happy in my relationship, I shouldn't be looking at other people like that. So I think honestly, the majority of that 8-year relationship, I was very unhappy. But I was lying to myself, and I had people try to talk to me about it, and that's where I would say I became very defensive, and I would shut people down very quickly, because I was right. I'm like, this works. It's good. It's none of your business, so fuck off, kind of thing. Because I didn't want to what's the word? Admit to myself that, yeah, you're right. Because I knew, like, I was in denial, but inside I knew it was not working out. And throughout that entire relationship, I was drinking a lot. I still never stopped drinking. And it progressed. And then at one point I actually started hiding it from him. And that just made me feel so much shame and guilt. Because I shouldn't have to do that. That's ridiculous. But I was just so unhappy, so depressed. And I didn't know how to express it. And, when we would have arguments or disagreements, it would blow up. I will admit that I was very terrible at communication, because I just didn't want to talk to this person. There was nothing that I could say that was going to change anything, because what I really wanted to say was bye. And I never did. I just let things escalate. And I remember he would always be the one to come to me and say sorry when he didn't have to. It was me. I would shut down and walk away. And that's not okay. And then at some point I started to just be kind of mean. Like, I was not very kind. I didn't want to be hugged. I didn't want to be kissed. I didn't want to be touched. Nothing. It just sort of started to be very obvious. And so when it came, I feel like I might be like jumping around a little bit, or this might all be a bit harsh even, but again, like I said, it's really hard to say, but I hope that this helps other people in maybe a similar situation, relationships.
No, I'll say from an outside perspective, it sounds like you're talking about your experience and your actions, and I don't feel like you're being harsh on anyone else, because you're just talking about what you did and how you see it, how you see your mistakes now.
Yes, yeah. And I definitely will own those, and he's still and had always been a great person. Just not my person, not like how I had thought it would be or what I wanted. So I have still care for this person a lot. Like, we had a long history, like a really long history, like almost a decade of dating, and then a decade before that of just being friends. And so it's tough. So where am I going with here? So by the time that we met, I had already been, okay, actually I should go back. How did we get engaged? Well, we had been together for so long. It kind of just felt like that was the direction we needed to go. I thought maybe that would also be what could help. It never is. Plus we were like, he wanted kids. And I said, the only way I would have kids with you is if we got married, when I really didn't want kids. And I was up and down about it. We had conversations about it. And I just felt like I needed to do what he wanted. Not just to make him happy. Maybe that would make me happy. But honestly, that's just not how it works. So we had been engaged for a year. We had, or maybe it was even 2 years. A year. I think it was a year. But we had put off our wedding date like 3 times. So that, again, is
already a sign.
It's a sign. Like, plus I had nothing to do with arranging anything. My mom was doing so much work. Thank you, Mom. And because I just didn't care. I didn't care. Didn't want to. And then finally, it was like a new year, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I needed to find a way out. So, but I think, tell anybody out there, if you are trying to if you're unsure, you're in a relationship and you're trying to find a way out of it, to utilize the people in your life. I didn't tell anybody. I pretended to everybody that everything was okay. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't ask for help or advice or anything. I just shut the fuck down. Like, I was just miserable. I didn't ask anybody. I was miserable. And so I was just trying to figure out in my own way how I was going to get out of this for good. And then by the time that we met, and I couldn't help, it was so undeniable, the instinct I had about you and how much I wanted to just be in your presence, be your friend, not ever expecting any sort of actual romantic relationship, even if I had wanted that. Just knowing you and having those feelings finally made me just bite the bullet and be like, hey, like, I have to go. I have to leave, because I can't be feeling like this strongly about someone else while I'm engaged. No. And why make both of us suffer in this relationship where he didn't seem happy either? We're in our 30s now, and we have lives to live. We have other relationships to create. This isn't fair to either of us. I really felt like I was being so unfair by letting that go on for so long. And I was just super grateful that meeting you finally just like kicked my ass in gear, and I did it. And it was hard. Actually, I'll tell you, leading up to it was hard. Actually doing it was so easy. It was so easy that I came across as, like emotionless. Just, what's the word? Give me some words. Like,
I don't know. Yeah.
Just
calloused.
Yeah. Just.
I don't know.
Definitely, he would say I was harsh, but I was just straight up to the point. Like, I just couldn't, and he felt like he was blindsided, but it was so obvious before. Like, I made it very clear. And when somebody's treating you badly,
well, and like you said, you tried to leave how many years earlier? Like, you already tried to leave the relationship once before.
Twice,
yeah. So
yeah,
it's hard to. I feel like if you're an active participant in a relationship, it would hard to be blindsided if someone's already tried to leave you twice.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like, and that's why I'm really hoping, that he kind of understood that later on and realized that it was the best decision for both of us. And yeah, I'm sorry that I let it, like I said, go on for so long, but I don't regret it. I figured out what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I got so much out of that. And I'm a much better person now. I've learned a lot. I know how to love better. I know how to communicate 1,000 times better. And I have some more empathy and sympathy and compassion in a relationship. And again, it was in my 20s. Like my entire 20s, I feel like, there was so much else I wanted to do that I never did. And we couldn't do things because he was always working as well. And but anyways, so that finally happened. And then basically after we broke up, within a few days, actually, like we were talking and we were hanging out. And that made me really, really happy. I remember when I broke up with him, I was driving away, and it was like a movie moment where, you start driving away, you have a frown on your face, and then you just start smiling, and like the world is bright and sunny, and I felt so relieved. I'm going to just say, like, I had lived so long, so wound up tight, and then it was just like a washed away. Yeah. And that's where my healing began. And then I didn't particularly mean for us to get together so quickly, but
we did.
I couldn't help it. Like I've told you this lots before, that I'm pretty sure that was like love at first sight with you.
I believe it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it felt so much that way for me. And and I think I knew distinctly too that it definitely wasn't an infatuation, because I had that before in my life. I knew what that was like. Like the fact that we literally just started talking and like never stopped was such a huge indicator to me. And even the ways in which, I think we were both learning to communicate. Because similarly, I had just been me by myself. My communication was mostly, just for work or with family and friends, not like a interpersonal, intimate relationship talking about, I don't know, the things that make me the most nervous and scared to talk about. Mm-hmm. And we could have those discussions. We had similar views on, I guess, life, and maybe not necessarily views, but like perspectives, or at least we could understand each other's perspectives, even if we didn't share them.
I also remember at one point telling you that you were like a mirror. We have so many similarities, and even though we've had different scenarios of things that have happened in our past, it's like the same thing. Like that, the same thoughts that happen, the same feelings, the same, like whatever follow up of whatever happened, even if it was a different situation. Like I thought that was so wild. I thought that me and him were similar, but I never knew that was a lie. Like you and I are so much the same that I didn't realize that I loved myself until I admitted that I loved you, because if I loved you, then I must love myself. Mm-hmm. And that was really crazy to think.
Yeah. Yeah. You're making me think in the way you're talking there is like, if you want to get into the, I guess it makes me think of the astrology part of our lives, where I'm Pisces and the water sign, you're the Aquarius in the air, but the blue of the sky is the reflection of the water.
Yeah.
Right? And even within water, it can only support life because there is oxygenated air in the water. Like there's this very tight, close relationship that is mirror-like, but also a complete balance as well. Yeah. So I've always looked at that as this beautiful metaphor for, I think, how we get along so well and how we exist together so tightly as a relationship, because there is so much that we can see in each other and so much that gives life to each other. But then we also have our own unique personalities and strengths as well that seem to at least pull each other through our weak spots.
Yeah.
You know, because I think too, so much at the beginning, we were both struggling a bit with, like with our drinking and weed use, and I guess maybe just reliance on, you know, chemicals and self-medication, because we had both in our own ways been dealing with these depressions and self-repression. But I've been loving the way that we've been working together to bring each other out of that and to see more of the beauty in each other.
Well, and what was cool is when we first got together too, is we weren't doing any of those things. We weren't relying on any alcohol or weed. Like, we spent the first month or so just with each other, like just living off that high.
Yeah.
And
it was summer beach season.
Yeah.
You can't be sad when you're going to the beach all the time.
And we were sharing things that I shared so many things with you right off the bat. I remember telling you as well that, like, I wanted to do this differently. I wanted to start off. Oh, well, first of all, I wanted to make sure that you knew that you weren't a rebound. What happened was gonna happen and needed to happen. And I did it for myself before. And you were just like the cherry on top. I was just.
Yeah, I remember being
lucky.
a bit nervous about that. Was again my my red flag detector in the back of my head. It was kind of
totally, and I understand.
Oh
that.
shit! I don't want to be a rebound. I don't want you to, become reliant on me for your physical or emotional well-being now. And yeah,
because I was already out of that relationship, had been for a long time, and I just needed to physically remove myself.
Well, I remember feeling in an awkward spot because like you were booted out of the house like immediately.
Yeah, that
and I was like
was unfair.
Wanted to be that friendly kind of, hey, you can crash on my couch, but like,
and I didn't.
That's a slippery slope. Well, I didn't offer because I remember being like, that's a slippery slope to a potentially really negative spot.
Yeah,
and when you were immediately like, no, like I've got a place to crash and I want to find my own place because I haven't lived on my own and I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
like,
I never lived on my own.
Like, then we can keep talking and I'll help you in that. But yeah, I remember feeling like, cool. You're not like, you're not looking to become dependent on someone again, I guess.
No, I didn't want to be. I needed
Which
to be.
Which made me really happy. Like that made me
myself.
love you more, I guess, is what I'm saying. Because I saw that you wanted to be more of yourself.
Well, and then if I had depended on you or tried to depend on you, then I would have again been lying about my entire existence. No, I did it all for myself, so I needed to live by myself, have back to my own accounts and not shared accounts and like all sorts of things, and it felt so fucking good.
Yeah, it does feel great to be yourself.
Yeah, and then opening up to you about things that it took me years or something to open up to others about. I had told you immediately, and I said, this is how I want any of my new relationships to be, whatever kind of relationships, romantic, friendships, whatever. I want to be honest. I want to, because those things that I had come out and open about was what made me who I am today. And hiding them from people didn't, like I couldn't, I don't know. It just meant like I was hiding myself. And so I wasn't being 100% authentic and genuine. And so I just, I didn't want to go fall back into that. Who the fuck is Chantel? Like, I didn't know who I was. Oh my gosh. I feel so good. Actually, it's been a while since we've talked about this, and it just re-energizes how I felt because I am myself again. And I don't even know if I can say again, because I was in this hole from all my 20s. And I'll have to say, because when Shayla passed away, we were 21. So starting then, that was when I fell into that hole. And then into that relationship and all my 20s, I was just in a hole. And so I wasn't anybody. And then when I started to discover myself, which is still happening.
It's a process.
Yeah, because it's only been a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. But
changing is life. You know, we change.
It feels so good. Like, it feels so good.
Yeah. I remember something you said early on was that you wanted to like feel things again.
Yeah.
Remember, I think it's when we were talking about music a lot, because we were sharing music that I think for both of us created really deep feelings. We had really deep emotional responses to the music we were sharing and listening to. And I remember that resonated so clearly with me, because I've always felt that in my life. Like, I'm here to experience and feel things, whether it's through eating things, talking about things, photographing things, writing about them, doing them, like, you know, whatever it is. I'm here to feel and experience. And, you know, part of that is you're going to have, there's an emotional experience to it as well. Like, there's so many layers of feeling that we're capable of. And like, it's an unending exploration of what we can feel. You
know what's cool? The first, I don't even know, I want to say weeks, but maybe even months of us being together, we had done so much together that out of the 8 years of being in that other relationship, I had done nothing. Nothing. And so that was also so freeing and so cool. And we literally have spent every day together since then.
Minus that week I was in Anacortes.
Yeah, which was so hard. I mean, yeah, most days. I mean, I have gone and had sleepovers with friends and stuff and whatnot.
I know.
But
I just use it to point out the the little bit that we've been apart.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing about you, Jake, too, is I've always liked you're so in touch with your emotions. Like, you openly cry, which is cool.
No, I don't. I'm a tough guy.
He cries. And I've always struggled with crying. Like, I still struggle with crying. It's just because I shut down so long ago in my life that it's hard to produce the tears. But it made me feel so comfortable that you were open enough to be vulnerable like that with me. And I was like, yeah, like, you have been consistent. And I've said this for like a lot. You have been who you have been since the beginning. You've been consistent. You haven't faltered. You haven't lied about who you are. And I so appreciate that, because I don't want anything else. I just want you to be who you are. And I want to help enhance that, like you have been for me. And you're kind of a little bit feminine.
Yeah, I'll admit that.
And I love that too, because that's another thing that just attracts me to you. And I say I remember a lot. There, you know, I never feel like, I don't have a lot of friends. I really don't. And although I crave more friendships, I could go forever without anyone else as long as I have you, you know?
No.
Where other times I have been like, oh, yeah, I have you, like in another relationships. I'm like, yeah, I have you, but I need other people. Like, go away. I need other people. With you, I'm just like, you know, as long as I have you, I'm happy. Because I get everything from you, everything I need. You know what I also really liked was that you had lived on your own. You know how to take care of yourself. And I appreciated that, because now I finally felt like I'm not the only one that has to do the dishes.
Or the cooking.
Or the cooking, or the cleaning, or anything. I'm not doing this all alone anymore. I have somebody who's there, who's willing to do, and I don't have to ask. I don't have to nag. Like, I hated that about myself. We almost fight over chores.
It's hilarious sometimes.
Well, because honestly, because again,
are you doing the dishes again? Come on, let me do them.
Yeah, because I started to feel bad, because I know how I felt when I had been the only person doing anything.
Yeah.
And I never want you to feel like you're the only person doing anything. Because that's just not how it works.
I tell you every time. I don't.
Yeah. But, this is, anyway, okay. So almost 2 years later, because we'll say April.
Yeah.
April will be our 2 years together. And I still am so grateful, thankful, happy that I personally made that decision to change my life, because I have never been happier. And you can ask anybody, the people who have been closest with my mom, about how night and day the difference is. And I just look forward to, oh my God, we have so many things we're doing, so many plans. I've been all over the place. I've traveled all over the place. You've been with me. You've met all my family. Everybody loves you. Like, I'm just so happy.
That makes me glad to hear. Because it's the same. You've brought an element to my life that I never knew I needed, that existed. And you bring this, I think, so much more love, both in your love that you have for me, but showing me the ways that I can love myself more. The skills that I have, like, I think similarly, it was easy to look at the outside of my life for my 20s and say, wow, look at all this great success and all these grand adventures and all of this. But by meeting you and living the life together that we've been living, like, again, it can almost feel like, similarly, like I did nothing. So I'm like, oh my God, there is so much to explore, not only in this world, but just together with you.
Yeah.
Getting to know you, learning how to love you better and more, and support you in finding yourself, in experimenting with art you want to do, or even just career changes, physical moves. Like, you've brought this whole other element to life and this whole other experience that I never knew existed, and brought that, I think, with such joy, compassion, enthusiasm, and like drive. You continue to blow me away with the ways that you love me and find love for yourself and share about yourself. And I just love you and appreciate you for all that you bring to life. And
I love you too.
like, it's, I think I felt throughout last year, I think some of that old perspective coming in, but like by the end of the year and putting together our yearly, like that recap video I did of all the stuff we did just this year, seeing, oh my God, like, look at how much we did, you know, because you're constantly talking about how much you've done now since we've been together. And to me, I almost feel the opposite, because I think I was always doing so much more before we were together.
Just different things.
But I mean, when I say that, I'm only looking at like my travels or the jobs that I took on or blah, blah, blah. But we have done so many things that aren't that I was never doing before. And it was so beautiful to look back on the year and say, wow, actually, I did do a lot. It was just very different than what I had been doing. And also, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And I felt like stepping into this year, especially with our momentum going forward on personal health as well, and like not drinking, getting back out in our, for me, going to the gym, you picking up your yoga more, focusing on our art, supporting each other in that. It's really shown me, holy fuck, like, yeah, just by sharing what you want to do, who you want to be, and then just going and fucking doing it.
Yeah.
And I think we both, I felt the stress this year, I think, because, financially it hasn't been as successful of a year, and I can get really wrapped up and worried about the money of, like the money or piling on debt or anything like that. But looking at the experience and just saying, none of that matters, because what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, how we're growing together, that's what matters. Those are the things those are the kinds of things that I believe we take away from this life. All the other shit, we don't.
You know what is awesome about all of that too was finally, when making the decision to change my life, my relationship at the time had also helped change my career choices. Like I had been so unhappy and miserable working in offices also for so many years that finally, that relationship's over. I don't need to be working in offices anymore. If that fucking money doesn't fucking matter, because it doesn't make me happy, and all the money in the world is not going to make me happy. And so I tried different things, and then finally finding something that I'm really good at, and I'm proud of doing, and I make other people happy. That is a great success.
Yeah.
So the momentum and everything since we've been together has been just working out in our favor, because we're not forcing anything anymore. We're just going with the flow of life and our instinct, our gut instinct. That's huge. And again, so many people just ignore that because of, say, they're safe or stable, whatever, all that shit. Like, they're scared to take the plunge in something that might not work out. And what I've realized with all those changes and stuff was that is the only way that that it's going to work out. How the world, the universe, life is going to show you what your life is supposed to be like, is if you do those uncomfortable things. But with you, it made it those uncomfortable things. Get out of here, cat. Sorry, the cat's making me really mad. Doing those uncomfortable things with you has made those things so much easier, and I haven't been so scared to make the changes. Like, it's just been a breeze. Like, I don't know how, it's just been great. And to have somebody that, like, I have loved you for longer than I've known you. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel kind of corny right now, guys, but we have talked.
It's
Jake
always
and I
corny
have talked
talking about
this
love
a lot before. Like, we feel like we've known each other for 1,000 years, and that's why it's been just so easy.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, following that instinct, I think that was something that you helped awaken me to. My cancer experience was also a big part of that. But, being a product of the U.S. public school system and going through the college system and all of these air quote wonderful institutions that we've built to educate ourselves, they do a shit job of really showing you how to find out who you are and teaching you how to trust yourself, and I think more your potential rather than your current value, so to say. Because I think what I recognized was how much I started to become this like maniacal planner, and like, okay, if you want to do something different, you have to make a big plan, and you have to have all these things in place, and there's like so many fucking requirements. But when you actually just go do the thing, you realize, oh, I actually didn't really need any of that. Like, that was just a mental exercise to boost my confidence. So then I go, oh, I can do this. And I think living through my 20s helped me further break that down, through some of my own travel and stuff. But I always ended up going back to that safe zone of plan, learn, get quote ready, and have the certification and the especially in Canada, holy fuck, they love to certify everything. Right? And like, you have to show your blah blah like intelligence and worth, and I'm like, yeah, maybe there's some areas where that's good, but for most of life, trust your instincts, do what you want to do, and trust that things will fall in place, even if you're looking out there saying, I have no clue what I'm doing, because fucking none of us do. Mm-hmm. Even those people with the plan, once the plan falls apart, they have no fucking clue what they're doing either. And 95% of the time, the plan falls apart. So,
yeah,
just go do and learn to, I guess, adapt and roll with things and, change and grow, because that's what it's about.
I think I think we've talked about this before too, but when I I've always lived like feeling guilty or ashamed or super worried about things and the future and the past and like just stressed about all that kind of junk. And then when I finally decided that I didn't give a fuck and I started living just day by day, like going with the flow, what's happening today, or maybe I'll plan a birthday party for someone and blah blah blah, something super insignificant like that.
Mm-hmm.
My life, even before, like, just became a little bit easier when you just take that stress off of, what's your 5-year plan? Are you fucking kidding me? What am I having for dinner tomorrow?
Yeah.
I'll figure that out tomorrow.
Yeah.
That makes me happy. That is how I live without stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where you become healthier as well, too.
Yeah. And I think through that process of journaling, we're over like failing to achieve those goals. You realize that so much of the externality of the goal, you know, say that 5-year goal, I want to be in a house and have kids and blah, blah. You're like, okay, cool. But what does that feel like for you? You know, you begin to realize, okay, there's an emotional state that I want to exist in. There's a feeling of security or love that I want. And that's what I'm after. It has nothing to do with having that house or that relationship or that car or the job or the title or the income. You begin to realize, oh, that's what I want. And then that frees you up to look at yourself and your skills and your value and say, and I'm good at these things. And these kinds of people value those things in this world, like value in terms of money. Like I can get money for doing these things and I already like doing that. So, wow, why don't I try? And then you just go and you keep finding things you don't like and pivoting and changing. But your goal then becomes a different kind of goal because it's more about an internal state of being that you then become, I think, very protective of. And I think I see that's why so many people who achieve that or who have true happiness and success, they aren't out there on TV talking about it, trying to sell you some course about it or blah. Like they're just living it because they see that's what it's worth. And the more you go out and try to talk it or show it to other people, the more you experience their resistance, their hesitation, their fears, their blah, blah, blah. And that bogs you down. So it's better to sort of just shut up, be happy, and live your quiet little life and not really bother. And by simply doing that, you will then begin to attract the people who truly want that and will participate in that with you.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that's, I firmly believe that's part of what drew us together as well, as you could see that. Like I had some of that going on in me that I couldn't see for myself, but somehow it was radiating out through what I was putting out. Because also, like I said, with that cancer experience, that's part of what it woke me up to was no one is going to give a fuck about my own happiness, my own joy, my own like internal just peace with myself. I have to do that. And here's the ways I do it. And sure, maybe I'm making music and being weird and it's creating these things that maybe by some metric aren't good, but I don't give a shit because it's success to me and it's good to me because I made it. I felt great doing it. And that's what I'm putting out there. I'm not putting it out there to be judged on the value of how good is that guitar playing or, wow, that's the same chords everyone uses or that's this, you know, everyone takes a picture like that or whatever. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, you're just doing what makes you
happy. I was
happy.
doing it because at least I'm not drinking and I'm not doing a 9-to-5 thing that I hate that makes me want to kill myself. I'm not eating poorly or, you know, it's like, no, I'm learning to love these processes and these ways of being because of what they bring to me. And I think that's what we should all be doing.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think I would have ever been, you know, like doing watercolor painting or even like singing. I've always loved to sing. I'm a karaoke singer. I've always loved to sing, but I've always been this is just an example. I've just been scared and like bad, like not wanting. And then with you, like it didn't matter. Sing. Like you made me want to sing. You just made me want to sing. So now we sing all the time.
Yeah. And I'm not a great one. Singing's not my strength.
We paint, we do art, we do all sorts of things. And again, I'm grateful because I feel like I would have been in a very, very, very bad place, like a worse place if I was where I was 2 years ago.
No. You know, I feel that same way if I had continued living how I was. You know, there's a point where I think, you know, maybe I glamorized that life of, you know, being some single successful bachelor for decades upon decades. But yeah, I think I just realized maybe that works for some others, but that's not going to bring me true happiness. I'm going to continue running away from an emptiness in me and trying to fill it with exotic travels and foods or fancy things or whatever, whatever else that isn't this meaningful relationship that we have.
Yeah. And we want the same things. And we don't want the same things. Like when you want kids. Woo!
Yeah, exactly. It's good to be aligned on
so
those.
nice. It's so nice. Yeah. I don't feel any pressure. I don't feel guilt for anything. Like I can tell you everything and never feel guilty about it or ashamed, and just grateful. I'm grateful. And I really hope, I don't know, are we done here?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I really hope that by opening up and being super vulnerable here on this episode of our podcast, because I say it was hard, just that little bit is really hard because it still just gives me anxiety, that little bit, but it leads to all the openness and the acceptance and all the best pieces of the story that you can't leave it behind. And I really hope that someone has taken something from this and improves their life in whatever way that means. And like I said, talk to the people you love the most, that love you the most, and just be open and honest with yourself, because the only way that you're going to be better and improve and happier is if you admit to yourself what the fuck is going on in your life and move forward and make changes.
Yeah.
And don't settle, because I never knew that there was love like this. Like, I thought I had love, but that was not, it wasn't true love. It was a different type of love. I won't negate that it was a type of love, like, but this, to me, this is like the realest, truest love I've ever felt. And it's out there. So if you feel at all like something is wrong, then it might be just wrong.
Yeah, and I'll end my thoughts on all of this with an idea that I was recently exposed to, and it was that by, whether it's painful or joyful thing in your life, by acknowledging that,
Yeah.
and giving it space to exist, that is how you grow. That's how you create more space in your life. That's how you create more opportunity. Right? And when we close ourselves off, when we resist, and when we push back against the universe, the laws of the universe are it will push back with an equal force. So the harder we push against something, the more we're going to be closed off from growth opportunities, and the more the universe is going to push in on you and make you feel squeezed and immovable and
Stuck.
And stuck, exactly. So
We've helped
by
each other
acknowledging
unstuck.
these things, giving them space, saying that, okay, that's true. Maybe I don't like what is in that space, but I alone get to decide what is in my life, and I can change that. But by acknowledging it and giving it space, you have allowed yourself to grow because you've created more space for things in your life.
Yeah.
So
If anybody has any, I feel like there could be questions, or if anybody wants to know a little bit more, you feel free to email us.
Yep,
What's our
pairofdinks@gmail.com.
Or Instagram, or if you just want to share,
At pairofdinks on the Instagram.
if you just want to share how you feel or how this made you feel or anything, we're completely open to other people's reactions and whatnot. So,
Or also just share with your circle, even if it's not with us.
Yeah.
Because you'll help make the world a better place that way.
Yeah.
Cool.
So much.
And if you like the
love.
podcast too, you can support us on our Patreon. And if you want to hear more stuff like this, write us.
Yeah.
Let us know what you want to hear about. If you have questions and comments and whatever that we would address. Or if you want to be a guest on the podcast, because we want to bring some friends on this year. So write us, and maybe we'll talk to you about what your experience was in whatever, whether it's love or career or
just life,
family, whatever experience you want to talk about. So, all right, thanks everybody for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.